Hello, screenwriters, and welcome to Writing for Screens. Ask me almost anything. My name is Glenn Gers. I am the chief everything of Writing for Screens, a channel in which I am trying to give you some tools and skills and insights into the weird art of writing for TV and movies. I am doing this after a career of 25 years writing TV and movies. I had to teach myself a lot of this stuff. And so on my way out of the business, after 25 years, I am trying to leave behind for you these things so that you do not have to teach yourself. They are not a system. They are not a plan. It is not a single lesson that you need to learn. It's just a bunch of stuff that I hope will be useful. You need to figure out how it will be useful for you, because every writer is different. Every writer has their own art. Every writer has their own situation. Every writer has their own goals. So therefore, you need to take these tools and ideas, these things that you can try, see if they work for you. If they do, use them. If they don't, throw them out. Now, the main place that you can find the things I have to teach are here. This is a little screen grab of my channel main page. And here is a close-up of the first 3 playlists that you will run into if you scroll down. They are Screenwriting Essentials, Screenwriting Tools, Skills, and Craft, and The Process Being a Writer. Now, those 3 playlists have about 50 little videos all told. Each one is about 10 minutes long. That's it. I try to take a single topic like dramatic action, character, dialogue, genre. The name of the video will be in the thumbnail so that you can just scroll through there and go, oh, that's a topic I'd like to know about, or that's an interesting thing. I'd like to find out about that. 10 minutes, see what it does for you. That's the name of the game. That is what this channel is all about. And then every week, Wednesdays at 1 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, I come here to answer questions and talk about topics that people ask me. These are hour-long. They are more improvisational and less organized. And yet, I think they're interesting too. But the main thing is those 3 playlists. That's really where it all is. If you have anything that you want to know about me, look there first. That's where I have taught everything I have to teach. Let's do some hellos. Hi, Trent T. Trent. Hi, Donna Nelson and Sonia and B. Jr. Oh, look, they've changed. They've done an update, and these should be bigger. Okay. Hello, B. Jr. Very nice to meet you. And 9. Okay. I say yes to you, 9. Hello, Jean, who is in ward number 6, which is a literary reference. Hello, Jean. And Michael. Hi, Michael. And D. Okay, 9 says, yesterday I wrote for the first time in my life. Thanks to you. Wow, that's really cool. Okay. I am so glad. This is what I mean by yes. Yes, 9. That is fantastic. It is important. No matter what you want to do in writing, the only way you're going to solve it is by writing. That is the most important lesson I can teach for you, other than you have to figure things out for yourself. Every artist has to figure things out for themselves. There is no right or wrong way. That's just a fact. It's art. Everyone does it their own way. That's why we like art, because everyone does it their own way. So therefore, you have to figure out your own way. So I can't tell you, this is how you do it. I can't do it. But what I can tell you is you cannot do it if you don't do it. If you don't write, you can't learn to write. You can't learn first and then write. You can't be sure you're going to write well and then write. You have to write and then you learn. And you have to have fun with that. Okay. Thank you so much. I am so glad when I hear that people are learning something. T. Trent says they always learn something from me. Hello, Elliott Case 2, Indiana. A fine, fine state. I know people from there. And now I know too, because Elliott's there. Hello, Vairala. Yes, life lessons. That's cool. Yeah, do not wait for permission, which does not mean do things that you are not permitted to do, although sometimes that can be worth doing. But what it means is don't spend your time waiting around for the gods of writing to say, yes, you are anointed a writer. You're already a writer. Start writing. You'll be good. Hey, distract. Hi. Okay, let's do a quick topic that I had got an email about. So I think it was a comment actually, which was, how do you grab the reader's attention in the first scene? For the next few minutes, I'm going to talk about this concept, what do you do in the script and in the story, in the movie itself or the TV show itself, to make the first scene grab the audience. Okay, now the first thing I would say is when you are trying to do that, what you are trying to do is get into the story as soon as possible. I know that sounds weird because everyone says, oh, you have to introduce the world and then blah, blah. I do not believe that. I believe that you have to do something that will engage the audience in the story at the very beginning, as soon as possible. That does not mean you meet the main characters or start the story. There's so many ways. I'm going to talk about some. But the main thing is, whatever that first scene is, it is going to be hooking us into the story. That's the key. That's where you get the good stuff. It will not tell us everything, as I'm going to show you. But the main thing is get into the story. Start the story. Don't wait. Get there. And a story is about a person or a group of people that have a problem or a goal. If they have a problem, the goal is going to be solve the problem. But I do like to acknowledge that sometimes you present the problem first. Okay. Donna's going to ask an early question, which I'm going to answer after this. I'm not going to get into that now. I'm going to make a note of it. Boom. And I will get back to it. If I finish this topic, Donna, and I forget, ask again. Okay. And Michael here is talking about a later scene in last week's live stream was about the verdict. Yeah, exactly. A simple line to tell you. But let's stick to the topic for now. Just going to stick to this topic. And this topic is, how do you grab the reader's attention or the audience's attention? How do you get it started? So one of the main things is create a question. And the question can be really simple. Who's this person? What's going to happen to them? 3 days. I'm gonna talk about a lot of different movies. And the great thing is the spoilers are just the first scene, so not a problem. 3 Days of the Condor. It just starts where you're meeting this guy heading to work. It's New York, 1970s. A guy's on a little motor scooter heading to work. He's a little late. And then we're intercutting that with his office. So we have a first scene in which we see this guy, he's running late. His office is opening up in the morning, and you get a little bit of a sense that his office is somehow information-based. And you see that there's a guy watching the office from a car, waiting to see who's checking in, to make sure that everyone's in work. Okay, that's the scene. The scene is intercutting a bunch of different characters at a certain place at a certain time. You are getting into the story. Events are going to happen in that office with those people very soon. But the main thing is you create a question. Why is that person watching? Why are we even meeting this office? It's a simple question. Who is this person? What do they want? The rule is, let me get into this first topic, and by the way, you're 9 minutes late. Not a big deal. And hello, Mark, and hello, Nathan. The topic for right now is, how do you grab the reader or the audience in the first scene? So the main thing is create a question. Think and do it deliberately. Don't, obviously you meet a person, there's a question. Who was this person? What are they doing? What do they want? Why are we caring? Obviously. But choose that person. Figure out what that question is that you want to hook them in with. And the main thing is, give them a person. Almost always, you are going to begin with some people. Now, these people often are not the main people of the story. However, they will in some way affect or involve the main person of the story, the main people of the story. So this is absolutely crucial. Create a question and involve your people in your story. Get it going. Don't start by introducing the entire world. Get into the story. The next thing is just hook. Make it interesting. Give us something that will make us curious and interesting. In 3 Days of the Condor, we're interested because we're bopping between these three things, and that each one of them has a little bit of style to it, a little bit of personality. We're getting to know a bunch of people, and we've got this mysterious stranger with this file who is checking the people going in, and we've got this guy who's different. So already, it's interesting. Now, another way to make it interesting is the way James Bond movies do it. James Bond movies start with an irrationally large, complex stunt, which almost always has nothing to do with the rest of the story. It's just a big action sequence. That's interesting. It's cool. West Side Story starts with a big opening number. Musicals very often start with an opening number. West Side Story, it introduces you to the place and the two gangs, the two rival families. So just hook, make it interesting, and just hook, keep it simple. You don't have to tell the whole story. You just have to hook us into it with one little piece, one element, one moment, one character, one scene. That's all the opening does. Or in the case of James Bond, just says, hey, get ready, we're having action. Yes, this is absolutely true. 3 Days of the Condor is an awesome film. It's just awesome. I love it. Okay, so let's just briefly go through again the ways to grab the reader's attention in your first scene. First of all, get into the story. This is really important. Do something that is going to start us into the story. Almost always. Yeah, now and then you won't, but almost every good opening in some way starts the story. Create a question. Get us interested. Have something happen. Have a problem show up. Have a person have something they're trying to do. Give them a person. This person can not be the main character, but have it be, figure out who it is and why they are starting the story. Then make it interesting. Your main thing that you're trying to do is get them hooked on the main thing of the story. And that means keep it simple. Just hook. Just a little bit of a hook that gets them. You don't give them the whole line. You don't give them the whole story. Just the hook. Okay, now let's talk about some examples. Hi, Next Institute. So let's talk about some great opening scenes. First of all, very often you hook with a scene that's later in the story, and then you go back. John Wick opens up with a guy driving his car clumsily into a loading dock, crashing it. He climbs out. He's been all shot up. He's dying. He's bloody. Who is this guy? We go back and find out. Why is he all shot up? What's going to happen? Sometimes you even give away the ending. Annie Hall opens by telling us that he and Annie broke up. We know that this is going to be a story about a breakup, even though it's the story of the love story leading to the breakup. 500 Days of Summer, same thing. They say this is not going to be a happy ending love story. Sunset Boulevard, and it begins with the ending, and it's like, how do we get there? So let's talk about some other great opening scenes, just to give you a sense of the variety and how they all still do what I'm talking about. The Godfather. The opening scene is this guy, not an important character, who's telling a story. And it's just this long story that this guy tells about this terrible thing that happened. At the end of the story, he asks for a favor, and we finally find out who he's talking to. all we have seen. You've started on a person, you've made it interesting, you've got a story going with a problem, a tragedy, and then it hooks you in because he says, will you help me, Godfather? Well, not Godfather, Don Corleone. And then we meet Don Corleone, and we now have understood so much about the situation of this man who people come to for help because he is fear-inspiring and brings extra-legal justice. Okay, all in this one scene. It's quite a long scene. It's quite elaborate, but it's just two guys talking. One of them has and the whole point is it doesn't open with a debate, a dialogue. It opens with a speech so that you get all hooked in. What's going to happen about this thing, this crime that was committed? Star Wars, absolute opposite. You start right in the middle of the action. Something is happening, okay? We see a big ship attacking a little ship. And the big ship is led by this fearsome, dark Darth Vader, who is there, and they're taken over and they're looking for this thing. And then we meet the two droids, okay? Comical, small potatoes, not heroic. And so now we know that for some reason we are watching these characters always introduce people. They're not the main character, but they are people who are going to be involved in the story because they are carrying a message. And that little message hints at the whole story. We see Leia. We hear about Obi-Wan. So much happens in that first scene where none of the main stuff is actually introduced, but it's all hooked. We understand there's big guys attacking little guys, and there's these people caught in the middle, droids, and they have got a message. All right, that's a great hook. Look at all that we've had there, and yet it's very simple. It's a scene about this guy is attacking his ship, and these little droids are trying to get away. Okay. Yes, many series and films start in the future for the hook, and then 2 weeks earlier, blah, blah. Yes. Oh, the Condor series. I never watched that. The movie is astonishingly good. Do I like that style? Yes, I absolutely like that style. Any style is good. They've all been used. You're not going to come up with something that no one's done before. I guarantee you. There's been too many stories told. Yes, Godfather 1 opening, simple but efficient. Absolutely true. Hi, Marty Mac. Once upon a time in the West, this train arrives, these people are waiting, there's harmonica playing, which will actually be very important. Yes, exactly. Margin call, you meet these various characters who are working in this office, and you begin to understand that there's the upper and the lower, there's the classes of people in the office, and that something is going on. Too many horses. I do not. Is that the title of something? I do not know what that means, but sure. Okay, let's talk about some other interesting openings. I'm going to go back in time to old movies. There's a movie called Patton with George C. Scott. It's a biopic about a famous general from World War II. What's interesting about it is the opening is simply a speech by General Patton in front of a gigantic American flag. Just this general and a gigantic American flag. And he basically presents his very earthy and controversial beliefs about war, about what a soldier is being trained to do. You get the idea that he is talking to people who are going to be in the military. This is controversial because it was made in the late 1960s when war was very unpopular in America. So putting the American flag and this guy who's saying, screw that, we need to fight wars and we need to win them and I got to be a tough guy to do it. That's a really interesting hook because we're like, who is this guy? What's going to happen to him? Even though it's simply a speech about military life. Okay. Citizen Kane. We have this hooky little opening where we meet this dark, mysterious castle, and up, it's a keep out sign. And up in the window, we see that there's this one light on. In that room, there's an old man dying, and he drops a snow globe and says, Rosebud. And then we meet a bunch of people, reporters, who are trying to figure out how to tell the story of this man. So, all right, Who's this guy? What's this rosebud? That's going to hook up the whole story. Okay. Michael is saying The Big Chill. By the way, when I have time, I'm going to. They've changed some things, and I'm going to change the typeface here to make it yellow so it's easier to read because the green is just fading in. The 3-minute opening scene of The Big Chill. We're introduced to the 5 main characters, their occupations, and their relationships to a stranger who committed suicide. Absolutely right. This is a great opening. Once again, that's an ensemble. It's a cool ensemble opening because we're meeting a bunch of people, and the question is, what do they have in common? Oh, they are going to they are dealing with the death of another character. Too many horses response slides in Once Upon a Time in the West. Okay, got it. Born Identity, absolutely. Who's this guy? There's this guy in the Mediterranean. He's been shot. He's floating. A fishing boat picks him up, and he's got this thing implanted in his hip. This little thing with code numbers. Who is he? What's going to happen? And then he doesn't know who he is. Ooh, there's a story. Isabel is saying, I just wrote the first scene of my new project, the very first thing I wrote for it. In the past, I've written more out of order. Yeah, so if you get an idea for the opening, that's great. But if you don't, that's okay. Sometimes you figure out the whole story and then you figure out the opening. That's cool. It's all, whatever works is fine. Sooner or later, hi Nacho, sooner or later, you need to find an opening that will hook the audience into the question of the story. It's just that simple. Who are these people? What are they doing? What's their problem? What's their goal that they're trying to accomplish? Social network. Okay, that's a really interesting opening because it's unusual. It's kind of a stunt like James Bond because it's a 9-page scene. I think it runs like 8 or 9 minutes of dialogue between these two people in a bar. It's a breakup scene. This relationship is ending, and we are meeting this guy, and we are learning that this woman who he is dating thinks he's an asshole. This entire movie is going to be about, is he an asshole? And if so, why? And is it okay? That's what Social Network is about. There's a movie called Edge of Darkness. Edge of Darkness, not a great movie, but it's actually really well written. And one of the things that's really cool about it is it just opens with this beautiful river. A beautiful river in I don't know where, but there's mountains, there's leaves, there's trees, it's beautiful. And the water, all of a sudden, these 3 bodies surface. 3 dead bodies rise to the surface of the water. Who are they? What the hell happened to them? Why? It's questions. You meet now. The answer is none of these people are going to be the main characters of our story, but their deaths relate intimately to the main characters of the story. So the first question is, who are they? And then as soon as we meet the main characters in the next scene, we meet a police officer and his college-age daughter. We are saying, what do they have to do with the bodies? So there's this question hanging over an otherwise common introductory scene. So we can afford to have this everyday scene of this father and daughter reunion because we know something terribly wrong has happened, which we know must relate to them. Mad World. Which is a blast, and kicks the bucket, literally. Mad World is a much maligned and I think very entertaining ensemble comedy from the 1960s, where there's a bunch of people on a highway, and one car goes swerving madly between them, speeding, and then it crashes, and the people in the various cars that it's swerved past stop, go to see the wreck. They see the body. They get a clue to a treasure. Story has begun. We have met the various players, and the story has begun. Do the Right Thing. Do the Right Thing has this really hooky opening credit sequence, which just sets a vibe, but does not actually tell us anything. However, the very first scene is we meet the street. This is a movie about a street and all the different ensemble people who are there, centering on a couple, and we do meet them. But we meet mainly the street, and we meet it through a radio broadcast by Senior Love Daddy, who is on the street. He's broadcasting from a broadcast booth in one of the houses on the street with a window looking out at the street, and he's talking about the world that we are introduced to. He is telling us about this street, which we are going to spend a day on. We are going to spend 24 hours on the life of the street. We're going to see all the different forces involved. So the way we meet it is to meet the street. That's a great opening. Saving Private Ryan. Okay, this is what they call a frame story. The opening of Saving Private Ryan is just this old guy and his family at a memorial service for soldiers who died at Normandy. And so we just meet this old guy and we see this cemetery. So we are knowing this is going to be about people who died in the war. And there's this guy and he's brought to a particular grave. Okay, that's the beginning of the story. Whose grave is it? Who died? What happened that this old guy knows this person in this grave? That's going to be the story. It's a great and I find it a little boring, but it's okay because you're going to plunge into action at the next moment. And it does set up this hook where you know one person lives and one person dies. And you sort of assume you understand what that means, and so you're following out how is this going to play out. Okay, It's a Wonderful Life. This is one of the weirdest openings in the history of cinema. Stars, heaven, and they start talking to each other. They sort of glow, and we hear voiceover in which God finds this inept angel and gives him an assignment. We're meeting a character. He's going to be a main character, but not the central character. But we're establishing that this angel has a mission on Earth, and that's going to be the center of our story. So, is it weird? Yeah, but in that way, it's interesting. You're like, what's going to happen here? Okay. Hitchcock's opening scene establishes the themes of his story. Sometimes Hitchcock does like to have a good opening scene, but it doesn't always establish a theme, unless you're going to say the theme is the story, the theme is murder, or the theme is, whatever it is. But in many of Hitchcock's movies, there's a terrific opening because he knows that works. Falling Down with Michael Douglas. That's a good example. There's this guy. He's stuck in traffic, and he's gonna blow. He's melting down. He's going to have a fit, an attack. He can't take it anymore. This is great. Yes. Okay. Stranger Than Fiction. That's a really cool opening too. You have a narrator who's a writer. It's about the relationship of. It's introducing us to a character, yes, George saves his brother, but that's not the opening scene. It's soon, but the opening scene is God giving the assignment. Stranger Than Fiction is really cool. I don't remember the exact opening, but I do know that the basic idea is actually this is something that happens unusually much for worlds where they tell us don't do openings with voiceover. Lots of good openings have voiceover. So Stranger Than Fiction is going to be about the relationship of the storyteller who is narrating the story and the writer within the story and their character. So we get introduced to all of those. Duets, I do not know. Oh, Duets, is that the one about the karaoke singers? That's another ensemble story. That was fun. That's a fun movie. Is this what it means when you have to hook the reader in your first 5 pages? Yes. Ideally, that's an interesting thing. There's 2 levels here. There's hook the reader and there's hook the audience of the movie. Both, you have to do both. So in writing, you need to try and write an interesting set of words. In other words, you can't just describe an interesting thing happening. It's good to make sure that you are describing it in an interesting way. Now, that can be simply a man is talking to the camera, and then you have a long monologue. Now, that's going to hook us into the monologue. We're going to say, okay, that's cool. Sometimes you have a little clever couple of remarks at the beginning, descriptive stuff. The main thing is, yes, at the beginning, ideally on the first page of your story, you have to hook the reader into this same set of questions. Like, let's take Mad, 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 Mad World. I don't know the script, but I know that the script has to begin with describing a highway in which there are 5 very different vehicles, and another vehicle, a 6th vehicle, is speeding dangerously around them and between them. Okay, we have now hooked into the story because we have met a bunch of people and they have a problem, which is somebody is driving insanely dangerously around them and that person crashes their car. Okay, we now have a problem. Can they be saved? Who are they? Each of the individuals have been introduced in this sequence, and each of those introductions has a little hook. This guy is traveling with his family and they're driving him nuts. These people are going to a business, I don't remember the individual situations, but these people are going to a business meeting and they're rehearsing for it. This person is all alone and sad and lonely. Whatever it is, what's the hook of their story? That's what you need to establish ASAP. In the first page, you have to get some of that in there. For instance, in the first page of Social Network, all you see is these people are on a date, but they are not getting along. In the very first page, you get the sense that this guy is pushing too hard, and this woman who's with him is like, I'm not thrilled with what you are saying. she's debating him to a fair amount, and that's interesting because it's supposed to be a date. There's supposed to be a romance, but there's an edge to it in the very, very beginning. So the main thing about all of this is, yes, think about something, and it doesn't have to be the main characters. Sometimes it is. Sometimes it's like in Edge of Darkness, 3 random strangers who are never going to know their names. We don't see their faces. We just see 3 dead bodies rising to the surface of a placid, beautiful river. Okay, something is wrong. And then we meet a cop who's widowed, and his daughter who's in college is coming back, and he's a little worried about why she's coming back, and that's it. We're off to the races. We know that these people are going to be in some way shadowed because people understand that you don't show them something at the beginning for no reason. Okay? There's no story on earth that's going to work where you start with 3 dead bodies and then you introduce a character and those 3 dead bodies never have anything to do with anything. That's just not going to work. I mean, in theory, in a really cool art film way, maybe it could, but I don't know how. Okay. I saw a parallel in the script in Alien. The opening scene is the ship slowly waking up. And this crew thing. Yeah. Well, what's interesting about that is that we are seeing the, first of all, Alien, okay, is a real, thank you, Aiken, by the way. Alien begins with a ship in outer space. Now we're meeting it, and it's a business ship. It's a cargo ship. So we are establishing the idea that in this world that we are meeting, the future, business has moved into space. That space is full of the same thing that interstate highways are here in America. Some trains and trucks are going around carrying stuff. Now we have a spaceship that is doing that. It's a workplace, a corporate-owned, grunty workplace. And it's dead silent because they're all asleep, but they are waking up. Something has happened. And when they're waking up, they're like, we're waking up at the wrong time. They're not supposed to wake up till they get to their destination. So in that first scene, we see that they are being woken up because something has happened. They have gotten a distress call. Cool. Who are these people? What is this distress call? And what is it going to do to them when they go check it out? Boom, we are into the story. However, note, once again, okay, We got into the story. There's a bunch of people and they've got a problem. They were woken up for a distress call. Create a question. What's going to happen when they get good? Why? What is the distress and what is it going to do to them? Give them people. Yes, we have a small crew of people. And then it's interesting. First of all, it's an interesting world. It's this world of workers in space. But then it's simple. All we do is meet a bunch of characters, each of whom has a personality, a style. Some are more, they complain, some are more sensitive and intellectual, some are more like, boy, I don't like these other people. The point is very simple. The rest of the story will fill in stuff. We're not getting a lot. We're getting very simple hooks. Yep. Okay. Yes, I do have a hook at the beginning of my novel. The very first line is, I have always been a thief. Okay? Why is this person confessing to being a thief, and what does that have to do with this story, which in theory we know is about painters? Ideally, in your first paragraph, your first page, you want to hook people in. Great Gatsby. This character says, I'm kind of privileged, and I was warned to be hyper aware of my privilege, and therefore I have I do not judge people outwardly, and therefore I get a lot of people confessing to me, and therefore I've met these stories, and it's changed how I feel now that I've met this guy. Boom, this guy. Who? Gatsby. There's a novel called Pale Fire. Pale Fire opens with, I shouldn't do novels, but I'm just going to do this because it's really cool. The opening of this, the novel is done in the form of a set of annotations to an epic poem. So the first thing you read is this epic poem. And then the annotations start, and there's this guy saying, look at the first lines of this poem. It's very interesting artistically, blah, blah, blah. And then the last sentence of the paragraph is, there is a very loud amusement park outside my hotel room window, or something. And you're like, okay, wait a second. That's not supposed to be in an something is wrong with this academic paper on this poem, because this guy is telling us that something is way weird about his life and the fact that he's writing it, and that's what it turns out to be about. But once again, the same thing. You want to establish something clear and then mess with it a little. Give us a hook, something unusual. Okay. Let's go. Yes. Eternal Sunshine of the Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. I don't remember the exact opening. That's a genius script, so I am sure the opening is great, but I don't actually remember the opening. Clockwork Orange, absolutely. We meet a character who is going to narrate his story. So as soon as we meet them, we're like, who is this person and what is their situation? And the unusualness of his makeup and costume and his world as it pulls out, and he's talking in this weird language, futuristic gang language. We are learning that this guy is going to tell us a story about his life in this weird futuristic world. Okay. Hello, Alec Webb. I wrote a pilot. Good for you. Excellent. I like when you write pilots. I like when if you write stuff, then you can learn how to be writing. Great. Yes, indeed. Talking about Alien, they wake up at the wrong time and the wrong place. Duck You Stalker, which I don't remember it at all. Cool. Yes, Sergio Leone loves to mess with time and stuff like that. Okay, Susan Woodcarver. I have had 4 possible opening scenes spinning in my head for the last few months. Listening to you today has clarified which one without a doubt is. Yay! Oh, that's so great. I am so happy. Yeah, and there's many ways to do this. There's not a right or wrong, although for you there will be a right or wrong, because you'll just say, oh, yes, this is the hookiest. This is the simplest. This is the one that most leads to the main story. Exactly. Inglourious Bastards. Again, I don't remember the opening. Not my favorite movie. Great first line of something. Sorry. One of the best. Yeah, Tarantino is always a snazzy, fascinating, excellent writer. Can the hook occur without the main protagonist? Yes. Several of the things I've mentioned definitely do. Star Wars. Okay, we meet Darth Vader, but we don't meet Luke until after we've had this big battle scene, and these drones, the droids have got this message, and they get escape the thing, and it's very, very involved, but Luke is nowhere to be seen. Yeah. Okay, cool. Yes, yes, I'm working on it. Hello, Wolf Powers. Yes, it's great to, yes, when I say, make it interesting. That's the key. What's interesting, something unexpected is always going to be interesting because it's not what you expected. It will then raise a question, because if something is unexpected, the question will be, what is happening here? There are so many great openings. Is pilot easier to? No, it's not easier to write. It's just a different thing. You need to, in a pilot, you are establishing the story. And so therefore, the opening hook of a pilot still has to establish the themes or the world or the characters that you are going to then, in the pilot, build your various situations to an ending hook of the pilot. I noticed Vince Gilligan's opening scenes in Breaking Bad were fascinating and beautifully shot, and often we had no clue what it meant. Exactly, yes. Breaking Bad obviously is a great example in which you start in the crisis, in which this character is in this very weird set of circumstances, very dramatic, very comical and frightening, and then you go back. Go back a couple days and find out, how did he get into this position? By the end of the episode, we have now understood exactly how he got to that situation. And then the rest of the scene plays out in which, spoilers, but it's the spoilers of the pilot. He basically gets out of what seems like a fatal situation, and therefore the rest of the series is going to be, what's he going to do now that he is in this situation that he thought was going to kill him? Okay. Untouchables opens with a man planting a bomb. Yes, I believe that's right. It opens with a bar, because now we learn about prohibition. Untouchables, I believe, opens with a bar, and there's a kid going to the bar to pick up some beer for their parents because it's the 1920s and prohibition. Rival gangs are having a gang war, so one of them has bombs the bar, killing the kid, I believe. That spurs meeting the main character, who is the cop who is in charge of stopping these bootleggers from doing their violent gang war. So once again, you are not meeting the main character there. You are meeting you're meeting people. You care about the people, even if they're going to come to a tragic end in the first sequence. And then you want to know what is this going to affect? And then we meet a cop, and the cop his job is fix this terrible thing. So yeah. Yeah. One example of an opening that recurs, this is a very cool thing that you can do in a series, is there's a weird set of images in I think it's season 4, I can't remember, 3 or 4, in which you keep seeing this weird images of this burned, damaged, stuffed animal floating in water, and you keep returning to it. And you don't know why you're seeing this thing. And then 8-10 episodes later, you find out that the events of this entire season have led to, I'm not going to spoil this one, an event which puts that animal in that water. Little Miss Sunshine, how it just kind of throw all the main cast at you and showed you that they all wanted at that point. Yes, exactly. You are meeting an ensemble group of people, and what immediately becomes apparent is they are tied together because they're a family, but they have conflicting goals. So right away, you're hooked into the story. How can this family come together and not destroy each other? And each one is interesting in their own way, and we get just a little bit about each one, just enough to hook us in. So we say, this one has this extreme element of this, and this one has this extreme element of that. There's the one guy who's writing self-help books and failing. There's a little girl who wants to go to beauty pageants. There's all these people, and the question is, how are they going to come together? Okay. This has already shaken up my ideas. Your story starts with a regicide. I had some minor outsider characters in the opening, mainly for reaction shots, maybe. Could be. There's lots of different ways to do it. If it begins with that, you could start by meeting the person who's going to be killed, or a witness, or a person who's going to be affected. All of it's possible. The main thing is you have to make one choice and stick to it. The scene should only have one hook. That hook may be a bunch of different characters coming together. That hook may be the situation of the message being sent in Star Wars. All of that action is about the message being sent. That's really the point. We're meeting people in the course of that, but the point is this message is being emergency sent. That's the point, the hook, the story. Yes, in Jaws, we begin with the point of view of the shark. It's going to be a story about people hunting the shark, and we start with the point of view of the shark seeing someone who is munchable. We cut and we meet the person who's going to be dinner. In the movie JFK, everyone knows the story, so it's establishing the military-industrial conspiracy. Yes, JFK is a very complicated opening, but it's setting up, essentially setting up the theme of the conspiracy that the movie is going to posit. So it is establishing the villain, basically, and it's doing that with a bunch of archival footage. And then we meet the main character as he is learning or is witnessing the assassination that will be the main point of the story. Yeah, nothing wrong with movies that build from nothing. They don't build. I don't remember the exact opening, but I know the basic idea. The basic opening of Duel is there's a guy on the road and he wants to get home to his family, and this truck cuts him off. There's an aggressive, anonymous truck, brutal, bullying truck, and an ordinary guy driving his car on a highway. And they have some unpleasant encounter. So we have met a person who has a goal. I want to get home. I want to drive my car safely. And then we have the bullying, brutal truck. Now, what is this guy going to do to avoid or confront or defeat or escape this overwhelming obstacle? That's not nothing. Okay, I want to briefly, hold on. In the Netflix series Sex Education opened with a hot sex scene. Was that a hook? Of course. A sex scene is absolutely a hook because you want to know who are these people and what does this sex have to do with anything. Thank you, Joy. I want to take a moment to answer another question, and then I will get back to this because Donna asked a question, and I thought I got it, but Donna, can you ask your question again? I'm going to go back to the beginning. Donna's question was, I'm almost done on my novel for kids and plan on either turning into a script or seeing if producers are interested in a book. Which would you suggest? I am terrible at business questions. I am bad at advice on business. I would say if you have the book, only turn it into the script if you want to do that extra work. Otherwise, you have try to have a 1 or 2 page synopsis of the book that you can offer as, hey, this is a book. What do you think about it as a script? I don't personally see the point of writing a script if you have written a book. The book is better than the script, okay? And if somebody wants you to write a script, ideally they would pay you to do that. So I would say submit the proposal saying there's a book, you can read it, because they can read the book and then they'll decide how they want to make it into a script. So that's my basic take on, if you've written a book, should you also write the script? I don't think so, unless you really want to. I once did that. I wrote a book. It did not sell to publishers, and I thought, this would make a cool movie. So I wrote the script, but that's because I wanted to. It was an interesting technical challenge for me. Overall, it's not better business to write the script. Didn't Kevin Spacey start by saying he was dead? No, he does not. That is a big reveal at the end. He begins by saying, I'm going to talk to you about all these people. He's talking about his life. He is not saying it's over. Butch Cassidy, The Sting, and World in a Carpet. Great. Yes, absolutely. Butch Cassidy has great opening. You meet Butch and then you meet the kid. And each one defines themselves in certain ways. First you meet Butch. He is upset by the changing world. So the themes of that magnificent Western are established right away, because he goes to a bank that he's planning to rob and he finds that it's been fortified. It's no longer robbable. And he's like, hey, what's going on here? So he's disappointed. Then he goes over to a bar nearby where his friend Sundance is gambling, and we meet Sundance gambling and being challenged that he is cheating. Butch shows up. We get a good sense of the personalities of both Butch and Sundance, their skills, and then we're off to the races, because the story is going to be, what are they going to do in the face of this changing world? What's the most common mistake in new filmmakers? Like, okay, that's a great question. Here's the thing: there are two major mistakes you can make when you're trying to begin a story. The first one is if you spend too much time setting things up before the story starts. There's a lot of advice that says create normal and then interrupt it. If you're going to create normal, there should be a tension within it. It is actually a very poor idea to start with a bunch of establishing scenes where you just are meeting characters who have nothing going on. That's really, really not good. You, in fact, will very rarely see that. There's nothing wrong with setting up the world. Casablanca just starts with a little voiceover and credit, which just says, hey, it's World War II. This particular part of North Africa is occupied, but has a lot of sinister underground action going on. And a lot of that action takes place involving people trying to get passage out of occupied territory in this bar. Boom, meet the bar, meet the guy, everybody comes to Rick's. So there's a little introduction, but it gets right into the story right away. The worst thing I think you can do is either start with like a bunch of kind of boring normal scenes where you get to meet everyone and get to know what they're like, and then the interesting thing happens that gets the story started. You really do, like, as much as many people advise that in how to write things, it's really, really not good. 3 Days to the Condor, to go back to that. That is, we're meeting those people. It's just the first few minutes, and already in the very first scene, we introduce that something is wrong. There is a man sitting outside this workplace, and he is marking dossiers of who's at this place and waiting for them to show up for some event. So while it is establishing the normal routine of this office in the morning, first of all, that's still in the opening credits, okay? By the time the credits are over, things are happening. And that's as starting from normal as I would get. So mistake number one is spending too much time setting up normal. The other common mistake is putting too much information in the beginning. Just hook. Even Star Wars, which starts by plunging you right into the action, is only hooking you. You don't really know much about Darth Vader. You don't really know that much about these droids. You don't know anything about the rest of the cast. You're only going to meet them as you go along. So you're just hooking into the main story. Empire, Rebels, Darth Vader, message. Boom. That's all you need to start. Don't overload your opening. Goodfellas. Okay? Goodfellas opens... Some guys are driving in a car at night, and then there's this noise in the trunk of their car, and they have to pull over because the noise is there's a body in the back that they thought was dead, but he's not dead. And this is routine for them. They treat this very workaday. It's like, okay, we got to shoot him. Boom, boom, boom. They're shooting him. Freeze. Voiceover. I always wanted to be a gangster. Okay. Bang, we are into the story. We meet our main character who is watching this shooting, this grotesquerie as everyday work of these people. And the question is going to be, you're not really getting a whole lot of information, but you're getting hooked. So the answer is, don't explain too much at the beginning, just hook, and don't wait too long to hook. I would say hook right away. Hook in that first scene. Get it going, which does not mean you have to have something as extravagant as that. 3 Days of the Condor starts simply with people showing up at work. This guy is running late. He's kind of a rebel in the corporate office that he's working in, this weird corporate office. And he mentions to his boss that he had this report. He's looking for answers to a question. And it's all very everyday. People are playing a puzzle, like a mystery puzzle, and he's very smart and he knows the answer to the puzzle, and then he has to go out and get some food, go out to get coffee. So it's not like that's super dramatic. The only thing that makes it dramatic is that we know these people are waiting outside, so we understand, and then within a few minutes things get dramatic. Okay. Duel was his first film. Actually, he had done some TV. It was a TV movie. It was made for TV. It was broadcast. It was never shown in theaters at the time. I actually remember seeing it. That's how old I am. I was watching TV that night. They said, "Hey, there's this movie." The main actor was a guy named Dennis Weaver, who I liked his mystery series McCloud, so I watched it, and I was riveted. Yes, Duel. First feature-length work by Steven Spielberg. The setting is hot property and film. Cool. This is for Donna's question about should she try and write the script. I would say no. If you have a story, if you have a property, you have a novel that tells a story, write a summary and send that out to people and say, hey, what do you think? You want to make this into a script? Right? Yes. Do not write treatments. I hate treatments. Treatments suck. Treatments are long, elaborate summaries. A little proposal summary, 1 page. 1 page really should be all you do. You're just trying, in fact, you don't even necessarily have to tell them the ending in the proposal. You are just trying to get them to read the book. Do not send people full summaries of your work. They will never read your work. Send them a hook. Send them a summary which establishes the world, establishes the genre, establishes the main characters, and the thing that makes the story happen, the problem, the goal, whatever it is. Oh, does he? That's interesting. Cool. I didn't remember that. That's neat. That was, by the way, not in the original script. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Okay. Don't write a treatment. A treatment is a thing producers ask for. If they ask for it, they should pay for it, because a treatment is a full synopsis of your story, which if they read it, they will not read your main thing. Really, really, really try not to write treatments unless you're being paid to write it. Yes, I love William Goldman too. Magnificent writer. Yeah, that's really interesting. I didn't remember that. It's a great hook. It's a great hook that we meet this average family who are far from average from the very beginning. But yeah, cool. I did not remember that he says that. That's really great. Cool. Yes, likewise, Sunset Boulevard, and it's now become fairly standard to say, like, basically to start with a death and then get into the mystery. Yes. No, I'm not going to spoil. In the 80s, yeah, fancy title. Yeah, but you don't write titles. You don't write music. You don't write fancy title sequences unless the contents of the events, like 3 Days of the Condor, the titles are overlaid onto events, action, things happening. I like the opening scene to the show Sherlock. Very different vibe to the rest of the show, but I think the point was to draw the contrast between Johnson. Yes, well, we're meeting our narrator. We're meeting our one of our two main characters, so we're getting hooked into his situation, and then we are going to meet. The story really begins when Watson meets Sherlock. That's the beginning of the story. And so by hooking us into Watson's situation, and then so we're saying, this is a guy. He's got some problems. He's a veteran. He's got strengths and weaknesses, and then we have him introduced to meeting involved with Mr. Holmes, who has a whole other set of needs and skills and stuff. We are creating a relationship. Which the question is going to be, how will they work together? How will they affect each other? And how will that lead to the solutions to crimes? So yes. Okay. Any advice on balancing the intro / getting to know the character phase while adding the hook? My answer would be, do them at once. You don't want to juggle them. You don't want to balance them. You want to make them one thing. Like what the main thing that you want to do, if it feels overwhelming, it is because you're trying to do too much. Just hook. Just keep it simple. The solution to balancing all the stuff you need to get in is say, well, what can I put off till later, and what big thing is my hook? In Star Wars, it's the message being sent in this chaotic, dangerous rebel situation. In any story, the intro just has to hook. You don't have to get to know the character. You just have to get one thing about the character. Alien, okay? All you know is that this bunch of working stiffs on a cargo ship have been woken up into a problem, and there's a kind of competent but low-key captain. There's a pissed-off, super competent woman who's not being treated with respect. There's these two grumpy grunts who like to complain about their work and make things difficult. There's a science officer who's very clipped and intellectual. And there's this guy who's kind of super sensitive. John Hurt's character is kind of offbeat. And the point is that there's little bits of conflict between all these people that has nothing to do with the problem at hand. It's just who they are and the situation. That's all we know. We know that this guy is kind of laid back, and these two guys are kind of grumpy, and this woman is kind of edgy. And you know, now the question is, what are they going to do in the face of this challenge? We have to stop and find out what this distress signal is. So the answer is, that's actually not getting to know the characters. We're getting one little bit of them. The opening of Social Network. We get to understand that Mark Zuckerberg, the character, I don't know the man, but the character is introduced as someone who is immensely competitive, immensely nervous and self-conscious, immensely needy And what is underneath it all is a drive, a relentless, angry, aggressive drive in competition, which means that he tends to disregard the humanity of other people, including this young woman he's having a date with. There's a lot we don't know yet, but we do know this one thing about him. He is an asshole. Okay, we're going to stop. A few comments. The conversation. Yeah, absolutely. Two people having a conversation in a crowded place, being spied upon by all these people. We are getting clues as to the characters. We get a sense of who's the boss and who's kind of the slackers and who's the ones who don't take it seriously. And there's a bit of personality, but what we're really that's not that. What you need to know there is the one thing about each character. Keep it simple. That is how you solve all the problems of the opening. Don't do too much. Just hook. Yes, the conversation is a magnificent opening. Here's a question. Bob McKee says that when Marion Crane died in the film, spoiler alert, before that, the protagonist becomes a split protagonist, the Dickon and her sister. However, I believe Norman Bates becomes the protagonist. Root for him, the car to go to Yes, that is okay. My answer to this is there's no right or wrong. One of the things that I really worry about when you get these rules, you have to have a protagonist and the protagonist has to become this. Different people will interpret the same story different ways. Stephen has brought us a great example. Okay, Robert McKee, has an analysis of a story in which he believes works in a certain way. He says that there's one protagonist, then that protagonist gives up the story and two more take it on. That's a legitimate interpretation. You could write from that point of view. Or Stephen has a different view. His view is that essentially the suspense of the story and the empathy switches to another character. I'm trying not to spoil too much about Psycho. But the answer is yes. None of these interpretations are right or wrong. Any work of art can be interpreted multiple ways. It is not necessary, it is not possible to say, I have figured it out. You are figuring out your interpretation, and as an artist, that's what you need to do your script. Whoever writes, whatever the author thought of Psycho, Robert Bloch, he and Hitchcock said, partly they were just like, oh, this will be cool. So, sorry, I guarantee you, they weren't thinking, oh, we need to have a protagonist do this. They were thinking, whoa, this will blow people's minds if we break these rules. And having broken them, Hitchcock and Bloch were like, well, what do we do with now that we've broken the rule? How do we keep the story going? And the answer is in some ways that you would say that the protagonist becomes the sister. It doesn't matter. All that matters is that you choose your interpretation, which gets you to write your script your way. Then all these people come and they interpret. Those interpretations are a thing that happens to a work that exists. They are not in any way right or wrong. And you do not need to get it right or wrong to write your script. You just need to get it the way you like it, the way that you believe in enough to feel it and write it. That's all you need. There is no correct interpretation of the protagonists of Psycho. My opinion is endless interpretations are possible because interpretation is a thing that happens after the work is done. The work is written by the author having their interpretation in their head. I don't know what Bloch thought. I don't know what anybody thinks about what they write. Sometimes they tell us later, but I do know that all that matters, you could be thinking, I have a mathematical formula that lets me write this, and if that lets you write it, great. And if no one ever knows that mathematical formula, fine. All that matters is that you figured out your characters and story and told a story that other people get into. Then, that's why I really, really try and shy away from this interpreting thing. I'm talking about breaking down the action of openings, but I'm being very careful not to interpret further what that's a thing that academics and YouTubers do instead of writing. Okay? That is not how you write. You write by saying, what do I think this story is about? And convincing yourself, finding the one that you believe in, to be able to tell that story the way you want it to be told. Some people might like or dislike a certain character or believe that the ending of a certain story means one thing or another. That doesn't matter to how it got written. All that matters to the writer is, I wrote it. It made sense to me at the time. So, my answer to Stephen's question is, yes. Yes, it is possible to interpret the events of that story both of those ways. Actually, even more ways. No. Bob, McKee is not worthless. McKee is worth listening to. It's just not, you need to then turn it into your work. Little Big Man is a magnificent movie. I don't remember the opening. I thought the opening was the interview with Dustin Hoffman when he's 100 and something years old. He's just saying that if you watch this, you probably know that I'm going to say no theorist is that important. Yes. Okay. No more comments. Stop commenting. Visual hooks are more memorable. Yes and no. I mean, there's not really a great visual hook to the opening of Social Network. I mean, it's nicely filmed, but that's not the point. This ties into your withholding information. Yes, every hook is a mystery. You get just one thing, get it right, get it well, get it hooky, and then you'll get the next one. Yeah, absolutely. I agree. I think the first page. I honestly don't think, if you don't write a good first page where you have established characters or events that make one want to keep reading, why would anyone read any of it? Okay, Columbo openings, right? Yeah, a lot of things open with a crime, and then the story is going to be that. Yes. They don't want one page. Try to get your hooky proposal into one page and don't necessarily tell the ending. I have an idea of an American president having an affair with a foreign minister. Everyone says the story is. I don't know why anyone would say that's a bad idea. It sounds like a good idea. I don't see any reason why not. I can't imagine why someone would say that's a bad idea. But also, I don't, is that because it's, I don't get it. But I believe that almost any idea, if done well, can be good. A treatment for a producer is worse. A treatment for a producer is like a schematic diagram. It's like a floor plan. It's awful. Okay. I read a book entitled "Kill the Dog." A snarky title is use your unique voice and don't chase formulas and rules. Yes, I would agree with that too. Although you don't want to just be different. No, you haven't been scammed. Just have different opinions. Your teacher told you that because that's their experience and their belief. I believe that they are wrong. I believe that writing that's the sort of thing that producers ask for. And frankly, I believe, and the Writers Guild believes, they should pay if they get a treatment. Okay, nice shirt. Thank you very much. I'm going to write a book called Drown the Camel. I want to read that book. It snazzes it up. Yeah. No, the visuals opening The Shining. But frankly, the opening of Shining is this family is driving in a car to a place, and there's a certain amount of tension because they're going to a place that they don't know, and they're getting stuck then. Okay. Mark, everybody. Pets are being used as book. Yes. Pets do sell. Okay. Did we glitch? Yeah, it's time to stop this. Okay. No. Look, enough. No more comments. Great. I'm so glad. I'll have to answer this another time because it is 15 minutes past the end. Yes, no one does. Yes, this is all true. This is true. American Graffiti, they actually almost didn't release it, and Star Wars, they almost didn't buy it. Okay. Cut here. Yes. End of show. This has been great. I will try and talk about unhappy endings in the future. In the meantime, go write something.